Welcome back. Have you ever felt like a fraud at work? Like you're putting on a good face, but under the surface you're kicking hard to stay afloat and you're not even sure you deserve your job title? Well, it has a name. It's called imposter syndrome, and a KPMG study has found that 75% of females across industries have experienced imposter syndrome at some point in their careers. To discuss, we're now joined by the CEO of Brandfusion and the founder of W Suite, which is aimed at breaking down gender barriers. That's Mohamed. Ms. Mohamed, thank you for being with us. Tell us more about imposter syndrome and why does it plague women so much?
It sounds like a mental disorder when we call it syndrome, and I think we should find another term for it, because it's really not something that's in our in our head. It's actually about our environment that we are in. Imposter syndrome is something where we feel we frauds. We feel that we actually step into a room and we don't belong there. And I think more and more it's very evident in the boardroom. I don't know if it's because we've had, such insane gender parities over the years, or is it just because we have had trauma in our in our childhood, where our parents, you bring 70% home and they were like, oh, but your neighbor got 75%, as an example. But I mean, some people that actually didn't have that still has imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is really about a feeling of us not belonging in spaces, not being confident enough. So for me, I believe it's a lot of our own personal self-confidence, and we believe that we're going to be exposed. Even though we have the right qualifications, we have the right to be there, we have the talent, but it is that innate inability to see our worth that makes us have this imposter syndrome.
And it's sad that it's often women who feel it. Do we know if men are plagued by this as well?
Well, yes, it is very much women. But let me tell you, Albert Einstein had imposter syndrome. In fact, there was a word that he said. He said that what he knows is involuntary. So if Albert Einstein had it, women like Maya Angelou has had it, where she said, people are going to find out who I am, when she released her first book. And yes, imposter syndrome, is predominant with women of color as well, because I feel that we are constantly having to prove if we belong in places, in spaces. So yes, it affects more women than men. I think men either hide it very well, and we tend to always feel as though, or ask ourselves, do we belong here? Or if we're standing in front of 2,000 people and we are confident enough to know exactly what we have to say, and then we're like, oh, somebody's going to find out what I'm talking about is and I'm a fraud.
Yeah.
And it's really about digging into that self-doubt.
And the whole point is that usually you do deserve to be there and you have achieved, and it's just this feeling that you're carrying around with you. So because it's Women's Month and this affects women, I mean, let's talk about throwing it out the door. How do you get rid of it?
The only way I believe we can get rid of this is to talk about it. We really thrive in tribes as women. And if we know that we can sit and have conversation about how we feel and sometimes it's not how sometimes it is about actually how people make us feel, but it's equally about how we feel about ourselves. So having a conversation about it, knowing that you're not alone, knowing that, and also self-talk, it's, you're worthy. I am meant to be here. I deserve to be here. And I think it's really, the brain is really a funny little thing in our head, that you talk through it and say, I do belong here, I am worthy, and just affirm yourself wherever you need to step in. But having a conversation about it in boardrooms, in groups of women and men, I think you would know that you're not alone. And we delve into this, that it is not something that is an illness. It's something that we can actually whether it's years, we can actually overcome.
Yeah, and leaders finally, can they help by affirming not only themselves but their subordinates as well?
Absolutely. Definitely. Leadership is an extremely important part of this. I mean, you step into a boardroom or you present something and, just acknowledge or validate how the effort that we put into the presentation. Of course, if the leadership says to you that, that was not good enough, you walk out there feeling like, oh, I am just not good enough. So it is important, the words that leaders do use, knowing that people have put an effort into what they're about to present, and say, well, maybe next time you could come to me a bit earlier, I could help you with this. It's the way. And I think with this imposter syndrome that we have to deal with this fraudulency that we believe that we are, the only way we can do it is some level of validation. I mean, whether it's our parents, whether it's our children, whether it's people at work, it's some level of validation, which I believe that we all need. It has nothing to do with being too proud to say, was that good? Because that's what we do. And somebody's like, well, well done. You put a lot of effort into that. And I think it's really important for us to actually validate each other.
All right. Thank you so much. The CEO of Brandfusion and founder of W Suite, Mohamed.